My in-laws announced they had booked us a spa weekend as a gift. Just go and relax, they insisted. When we returned, they turned our bedroom into a home office for themselves. What I did next left them speechless. My husband and I live in Chicago. We're both in our 30s, been married 5 years, no kids yet. Just us and our little 2-bedroom apartment that we've poured time, love, and way too much money into over the years. I work remote as a UX designer. My husband, Mark, is a physical therapist at a clinic about 30 minutes away. Life's not perfect, but it's good. We've made the space our own. The second bedroom wasn't just a guest room, it was our shared little sanctuary. I used it to work, read, sometimes meditate. Mark would use it to unwind with his music. We kept books, plants, a small couch, my desk, a shelf with candles and random travel souvenirs. Our stuff. Our space. Mark's parents, George and Susan, live up in Milwaukee. They visit us about once every 2 to 3 months. Sometimes more if they find an excuse. They've always been involved. Overbearing at times, sure. Lots of suggestions about how we should live our lives, how to spend our money, what to cook, how to decorate. Anyway, 3 weeks ago, they came over for dinner. Nothing unusual. We made baked ziti. They brought some cheap red wine they love, and the conversation was mostly normal until dessert. That's when Susan dropped it. "You two have been working so hard," she said, very sweetly. "We thought you could use a break. So, we booked you both a weekend at the Tranquil Water Spa in Lake Geneva. Full weekend. Everything paid." I didn't know what to say. Neither did Mark. We already called the place. Friday through Sunday. "It's all set," George added, all proud. "Don't argue. It's a gift. You need this. And we'll stay here, take care of things. Watch the apartment while you're gone," Susan added, almost too quickly. I got a weird feeling right away. It's not like they'd never house-sat before. But this felt rehearsed. Still, Mark and I were burnt out. A weekend away sounded like heaven. We hesitated, but they insisted. Said we never do anything for ourselves. Said we'd be crazy to turn it down. So, like idiots, we said yes. The spa weekend itself was perfect. Massages, wine by the lake, long naps. For 48 hours, we actually felt relaxed. Then we got home. The second we opened the door, I knew something was off. Our coat rack had been moved. Our mail, which usually sat in a basket on the entryway table, was in a neat stack on the kitchen counter. Harmless, maybe, but still weird. Then we walked down the hall. And we saw it. The second bedroom, our space, was gone. Like gone. The soft sage walls were now an ugly gray. My desk? Gone. The bookshelves? Gone. The plants? Gone. Instead, there was a giant, heavy-looking executive desk in the middle of the room. 2 tall black filing cabinets. A printer. A corkboard with pin notes. Diplomas. Office supplies. "What the hell?" I whispered. I wasn't angry yet. I was confused. Disoriented. Then George appeared in the hallway. "Surprise," he said, grinning like this was some kind of joke. "We turned the spare room into a home office for when we visit," Susan said from behind him. "George has been needing a proper place to work when we're here. This way we don't have to sit at the dining table anymore." I didn't answer. I was too stunned. Mark stepped into the room like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Where's our stuff?" "Oh, don't worry," George said, waving it off. "We packed everything neatly. It's all in your basement storage unit. Labeled and everything." I was frozen. Like physically couldn't move. My chest was tight. My ears were ringing. They didn't ask. They didn't warn us. They didn't even tell us they were thinking about doing this. They just did it. Our things. Our space. Gone. Mark finally found his voice. "You can't just do this. This wasn't your decision to make." George looked confused, even annoyed. "You weren't using it for anything important. It was basically storage. This is a much better use of the space." I think that's when the shift happened in my brain. That exact sentence, You weren't using it for anything important. I had to walk away. I went into the kitchen, sat down, and tried to breathe. They didn't apologize. Not once. In fact, over dinner, because yes, we still had to feed them after that, Susan actually said she was excited for us to see how efficient the new room looked. Efficient. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling while Mark tried to talk me down. I wasn't just mad. I felt violated. Like they had taken something deeply personal and decided it didn't matter. I didn't sleep. Not 1 minute. In the morning, over burnt toast and forced small talk, I told them we'd be reorganizing things after they left. Susan didn't say anything. George just mumbled something about just trying to help. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've been planning. Because they're coming back in 3 days. And I have a surprise of my own. After they left, I went straight to the basement storage unit. Our boxes were there, all right. All our stuff shoved into random moving boxes with masking tape labels like miscellaneous decor, books, extra. My desk had scratches. One of the bookshelves was cracked. The glass globe I bought on our honeymoon? Shattered. And suddenly it all clicked. They didn't care. This wasn't just some misguided attempt to help us. This was about control. Mark's parents had always wanted more access to us. More say. More space. And now they had taken it. But they weren't prepared for what I was about to do. I work remote. I have time. I have energy. I also have petty in my blood when you mess with me like this. So I spent the next 2 days doing one thing, reversing. First, I hired a junk removal company. I told them I had office furniture that needs to disappear fast. When the guy saw the desk, he whistled. This thing weighs a ton. Not my problem, I said. It goes. I didn't sell it. I didn't donate it. I paid extra to have it destroyed. I dug out our things, repaired what I could, and scrubbed every inch of that room. Then I painted the walls back to sage green, my color. Put the bookshelf back. My desk. My candles. Our couch. It looked like it had before. Except this time, I added a lock to the door. Here's where things get fun. I told Mark I wanted to handle the revenge my way. He wasn't thrilled, but after what his parents pulled, he agreed to let me run with it. So when George and Susan texted saying they'd be dropping by again that weekend for a longer visit, I said, great. Can't wait. What they didn't know was that I had other plans. I called a locksmith, changed the front door lock and the guest room lock. Then I booked a last-minute weekend away. Not for me and Mark this time, but for just him. You're sending me away? He asked. Yep, I said. Go play golf. Get a massage. Whatever. Just trust me. He left Friday morning. Friday afternoon, George and Susan showed up. I greeted them with a smile. Where's Mark? Susan asked, stepping inside without even waiting for an answer. Oh, he's out of town this weekend, I said. Just me. I saw the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. Then came the bomb. So, George said, setting down a bag. We'll just get settled in the office. Oh, it's not an office anymore. Susan blinked. What? I smiled, opened the guest room door just enough for them to see the green walls, the bookshelves, my desk. You changed it back? George said, voice sharp now. Of course I did, I said calmly. You had no right. We were doing you a favor, he snapped. And I'm returning one, I said. We no longer have a guest room. Sorry, it's not available anymore. Susan looked pale. But where are we supposed to sleep? I handed her a card. Hotel's 10 minutes away. I booked you a room for 2 nights. You'll love it. Indoor pool. You know when someone tries to hold in rage and confusion at the same time? That was George. Susan tried a softer tone. But we drove all the way here. It's freezing out. I nodded. And yet, you took over our home. Without asking. You made decisions for us. Without asking. Now, this is how I make decisions. Without asking. They stood there for a minute. George looked like he wanted to yell. Susan's jaw was clenched so tight I thought she'd crack a tooth. They left without another word. That night, I sat in our room with a glass of wine and no regrets. Not one. But I should have known it wasn't over. Because Sunday morning, I got a call. It was my building manager. "Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. A couple came by earlier today asking about your unit. Said they were doing a surprise inspection for their son." My stomach dropped. "What?" "They said they were your in-laws. We told them we don't allow unannounced visits, but they were persistent. We had to call security." I thanked him and hung up. Mark came home that afternoon. I told him everything. We agreed it was time to draw a line, once and for all. But before we could even start that conversation, before we could figure out what to say, how to keep them away, they showed up again. At my office building. And that's when things went from uncomfortable to something else entirely. So yeah, they showed up at my office. I work in a co-working space downtown, even though I'm remote. I like having a quiet place outside the house when I need to focus. It's not a public building. You need a keycard or someone to buzz you in. That Monday, I got a message from the front desk. "There's a couple here asking for you. Says they're your family." I knew. I just knew. I took the elevator down, heart pounding. And there they were. George and Susan, standing like they owned the place. Susan had that fake calm look she gets when she's about to say something she thinks is reasonable, but is actually insane. George didn't even wait for me to speak. "We need to talk," he said. "You've made a huge mistake." "I'm working," I said flatly. "You can't just show up here." "We had to," Susan jumped in. "You embarrassed us. Send us to a hotel like we were strangers." I just stared at them. "You took over my house. My space. Without asking. That's not just rude, it's crazy." That's when George, no joke, said, "We're family. We don't need permission." "That's not how this works." I swear I saw red for a second. "I need you to leave," I said. "Now. This is my place of work." George took a step toward me, low voice. "Mark is my son. And I'm going to make sure he knows what kind of woman you're becoming." That did it. I walked past them, straight to security. Within minutes, they were being escorted out. Susan was whisper-shouting something about just wanting to fix things, while George glared at me like I was the one who crossed a line. I didn't go back upstairs. I went straight home. I called Mark at work. Told him everything. He was quiet for a long time, then said, "Okay. This is war." That night, we sat down and wrote a long message. Together. We sent it to both of them. It was clear, calm, and final. "From now on, you are not welcome in our home without an invitation. You do not have a key. You do not have access. Any attempt to force your way into our lives or apartment will be treated as harassment. We love you, but this behavior is toxic and controlling. We are adults. You do not own our time, space, or marriage. Do not contact us unless you are ready to respect boundaries." We sent it. Then we blocked them on everything. Emails, texts, even Facebook. Clean cut. It felt good. For a few days. Until we got the letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was slipped under our door. And it wasn't from George or Susan. It was from Mark's younger sister, Natalie. Now, for context, Natalie lives in St. Paul. She's usually the quiet one, barely involved in family drama. We see her maybe once a year. Her letter was unexpected. She wrote, "I know things have gotten weird, but I need you to know something. Mom and Dad have been planning this for a long time. I didn't want to get involved, but they started talking about moving closer to you guys. Dad said he needed a space to settle in permanently. I thought he meant a job thing, but now I realize he meant your place. They kept saying, 'Soon we won't have to drive home anymore.' I didn't understand until now. I read it 3 times. Mark was shaking. They weren't just trying to make a home office. They were trying to move in. Permanently. Suddenly, everything made sense. The spa weekend. The weird rush. Their urgency. The way they talked like they were doing us some kind of favor. They were trying to slowly take over our home. Like we wouldn't notice if it happened one weekend at a time. We didn't just feel creeped out, we felt violated. Like they had been playing a long con. Mark called Natalie. She confirmed everything. Said Susan had even looked into renting a storage unit nearby. George had asked her about transferring some of his business mail to our address. They were serious. They had plans. So now we weren't just dealing with entitled parents. We were dealing with people who were literally trying to infiltrate our lives. We filed a formal complaint with the building, had our locks double-checked, set up a camera, changed our passwords, every little safety net, reinforced. But then came the twist we really didn't expect. Mark got a call from his uncle, George's brother. "I heard from your dad. He says you've gone crazy. He says your wife's trying to cut the family out." This man, who hadn't spoken to us in years, was now suddenly involved. And he wasn't alone. Mark's aunt texted, then a cousin. All basically saying the same thing: you're overreacting. They just want to be closer to you. This isn't a big deal. We realized George and Susan had started a full-blown smear campaign. But we also knew something else. They weren't going to stop. We were done being polite. No more second chances. No more understanding. They had crossed the line over and over. And now they had the family turning against us with their lies. Mark was hurt, but I was livid. We had played defense for too long. It was time to hit back. So we started digging. Mark remembered that during one of their visits, George had asked to borrow our Wi-Fi. He'd written something in a notepad on his phone. "I'm no hacker, but I know my way around a router." I pulled up our old network logs and found something. George had used our network to access his work email from his private consultancy business, a business that, as far as we knew, was supposed to be winding down due to retirement. So why was he still active? I clicked around, tracked more history, found documents, names, contracts. Some of the files had tax info. He wasn't just working from our home without asking. He was running a full, unlicensed business out of our address. I couldn't believe it. But then it got worse. He had actually listed our apartment address as a secondary business location on a couple public forms. I found it through a basic Secretary of State website search. That's when it all came together. This was never about visiting or a home office. George had started moving parts of his business under our roof. If we hadn't caught it, he could have legally tied us into his crap. Our address, our liability, our name. I felt sick. We talked to a lawyer. The advice was clear: report it. Protect yourselves now. So we did. We filed a formal complaint with the Illinois Department of Revenue. Then we reported the business filings as fraudulent. Attached documents, screenshots, dates. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fast. But it worked. 3 weeks later, George got hit with a cease and desist order and a financial audit. Mark didn't tell them. He didn't warn them. We let them find out through the mail. And when they called, we didn't answer. When they showed up at the building, security turned them away. Cameras caught them shouting in the lobby. We sent one final message through a lawyer: any future contact will be considered harassment. You are legally barred from using our address for any reason. Do not attempt to visit, call, or communicate unless through counsel. It was cold. It was harsh. But it was necessary. And it should have ended there. But here's the part where I messed up. I posted about it. I needed the validation. I needed people to know what we'd been through. I didn't name names. I didn't share anything illegal. Just the story. It blew up. People sided with us. Said we were right. That we'd handled it well. Except one person saw it. Natalie. She was the only family member we still had any contact with. She sent me a long, hurt message. You said you'd protect my privacy. You told me you appreciated what I shared. Then you put it online for strangers to dissect. She was right. I had thanked her for being the only one to tell us the truth. She took a risk, and I broke that trust. I didn't include her name, but it was close enough that family who saw it would know she was the source. She cut us off. That hurt more than I expected. And it made me realize revenge feels good in the moment. But it costs. You don't always see the full price until later. In the end, George and Susan got what they deserved. Their little power grab exploded in their faces. George's business? Under investigation. Their reputation in the family? Shaky at best. They're now blacklisted from our building. No address, no key, no access. But we paid too. Mark's family is broken. He talks to one cousin now, maybe. I lost Natalie. Probably for good. And yeah, I lost some peace of mind. Trust isn't easy to rebuild when people twist your kindness into an opening. Our space is safe now. Our home is ours again. But it came at a cost. Would I do it again? Maybe. But I'd do it quieter. Cleaner. With fewer casualties.